What's up, Anchor peeps and horror fans? I'm Anchorpete, and today we have something a little different. I actually have Danny right over there, Dr. Zayas God on Twitter. He is from the Lastercast channel, and if you've checked that out, you know that me and Danny and our friend Chris, we review horror movies, and we've even started recently reviewing horror books. Well, Danny's wife, Athena, right next to him, she is a huge horror fan as well, a huge horror book fan. And so we thought it'd be perfect to have her on the show too to discuss Stephen King's book, Needful Things. So welcome, guys.
Hey, what's up?
Yeah, it's awesome to finally have you on the Anchorpete channel, and do a little cross promotion,
Yeah, I mean, we've been doing Stephen King month on the Lastercast all of November. We did the book review of Revival. We just talked about Dr. Sleep. So now back to Anchorpete, and this is where it all started. So
heck yeah. Today we're going to be discussing Needful Things, and it was released in 1991, and it was actually Stephen King's first book that he wrote after going through rehab for drug addiction and alcohol addiction. So, Athena, I know that you've read a lot of Stephen King books, right?
Yeah.
Could you put a number to that, or give us an idea of how many?
Well, I don't actually know how many he's written, but I think there's only 3 or 4 that I haven't read, and I probably could say I haven't read Cycle of the Werewolf, Doohickey, and
Cycle of the Werewolf, like a graphic novel.
Under the Dome. I haven't read those yet.
Oh, okay.
So,
wow.
There might be something else in there.
Yeah. What if he's up to 70? It's like whatever for her. It's like X minus 3. She's like a speed reader though, so it's really not fair.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. That is crazy.
I mean, I find the audiobooks fine. Like when he's listening to it, I'm listening to it too, but I just really like the feel of a book in my hands.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I have actually not read that many Stephen King books myself. I've read the Maine Dark Tower books, Not Wind Through the Keyhole, and then I read From a Buick 8, and then I've read this book, and then also Revival, thanks to Danny. So it's kind of cool. We have kind of both ends of the spectrum, right? And then Danny, are you kind of somewhere in the middle, or?
Oh yeah, I'm definitely in the middle. Like I've read, I got into horror because my dad was a giant Stephen King fan, and it's funny, Cycle of the Werewolf was the first Stephen King book I read because my dad was like, here, it's kind of like, it's not a graphic novel, but it's a very short novella with amazing art. And my dad was like, here, you'll love this. So I read that and Eye of the Dragon when I was probably 11 or 12. And then I basically got into the Stephen King movies after that. And then really, since I got together with Athena, we got together in 2008. And that was right where the Dark Tower series was, books 5, 6, and 7 were starting to come out.
Yeah.
So she got me to reread books 1, 2, and 3. And I ended up finishing the whole series. I've read 8 or 9 Stephen King books just during quarantine.
Wow.
So I'm probably up to close to 20 total from my life.
Okay.
And yeah, so I'm definitely in the middle of where you guys are.
To me, when I think about Needful Things and the fact that it came out after he's done with rehab, after he's getting over alcohol addiction and drug addiction, it's interesting to see the change in his writing. So Athena, do you think that there is a significant shift in his writing between pre-Needful Things and then Needful Things on?
I mean, because I'm not sure chronologically of the books that he did, what I will say is that what I noticed about this book, and I might be the only one, is that it doesn't give you tons of exposition the way his other books do, and I love that builds up, that slow burn.
Yeah. And
he gives you the, hey, welcome to this town, there's that person, and that's cute and everything, but I can rank Stephen King books the way it's like picking your favorite child.
Yes.
So while I would say I probably don't like this one as much as The Stand or The Talisman or Shining, Dr. Sleep, a bunch, because it was a little too fast. It was a little too frenzied for me, and I would have liked a slower character development.
Huh. Okay. Well, yeah. So with this discussion,
it's very funny you said that. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. So with this discussion, I think we should kind of save spoilers towards the end, just in case people want to read the book and.
Okay.
But what I'll say is to go along with what you just said, Athena. is I actually kind of felt the opposite way.
Really?
I felt like there was so many times. Well, first of all, it's not my favorite Stephen King book either, but I felt like it was so many times where we're seeing the same situation over and over again, repeated, and it's kind of like the same scene over and over again. And you're like, okay, well, someone's gonna walk in the shop. There's the silver bell. He's gonna present them with something they want. They're gonna think it's really awesome. He's gonna tell them a little trick they have to do, and it just happens like 10 times, right?
Yeah.
And I like Gaunt is this great character, and each of the characters in the book, it varies, the people in the town, right? But I just kind of felt like, can we move this along? Can we get to something that's interesting? Now, one thing I want to hear what you guys think, but like one thing I discussed with Danny was that Stephen King is a pantser, right? And that means that like essentially he kind of writes from the seat of his pants, and so he doesn't plan things out like other writers. And so I feel like every time he goes into these little mini stories about people's lives, that's like a little tangent that he goes off on. And to me, I felt like that was the most interesting stuff. And that kind of sounds like what you said you really appreciate from Stephen King too. Right, Athena?
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, I would have much rather had more stuff like what you're saying, where it's like the character development instead of like these over and over again, the same kind of scenario with the silver bell. And I don't know. It just, I kind of wanted to get through it. What would you think, Danny?
It's funny. I a little bit of both of you, because I totally agree with you, Pete, that, and I said this to her as soon as she finished reading it. I said, this book could have been 200 pages shorter, because it just felt at some points it was like, and now this character goes and slashes their tires, and then literally another character goes and slashes another person's tires. And I'm like, we just read this.
Yeah.
And like, but I also do love when he gives you that exposition about who these people are. And I felt that he does that in this book a little bit, like when he would go into Polly or Nettie at the beginning, and he, you find out all about Polly's backstory and going to San Francisco and the relationship with her parents. Like, that's so important.
Polly was very well developed.
That's
Polly
really
was
important. And that's the stuff that I do love about Stephen King. But this book also, I do feel that this book had a great idea, which is the devil comes to a small town and opens up a shop. And that idea is perfect, but I don't think there's a great story here. I think it's a great idea. And then it's like you said, it's kind of just, and then Pete walks into the store, and then Athena walks in, and then Danny walks, and it felt like at one point I actually said, I think I was in the car by myself, and I was actually like, Steve, we don't have to meet everyone in the town.
Right.
Like Castle Rock's probably got like, a couple thousand people. We don't need to know every single one of them.
Right.
And I won't get too into the movie, but we just watched the movie, and what I do like almost more about the movie is it's only a 2-hour movie, so it does really focus in on those just few essential characters that you need.
Yeah, but it skips the Polly.
Oh, no, it does skip a lot. Obviously, it does skip a lot, but it, like, Keaton is obviously a big part of the book. Like I said to her, you could have done this book without Ace Merrill. I felt he was completely extraneous.
Yeah.
Because this is, he calls this the last Castle Rock story.
Yeah.
So like, I felt like he brought in Ace because Ace is a character from Stand By Me.
Yeah.
And he wanted to like pay off that Castle Rock connection. But you already had Keaton basically playing that subordinate character to Gaunt. So you didn't need Ace Merrill there. And like, that was another thing of like, okay, we're just going to throw in more characters and do the repetitiveness of the story again.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would have liked to see a little more hesitation and more like, oh no, I really shouldn't do this from the other characters besides Polly in the story.
Yes.
I would have liked to see them, really like struggle with it besides Brian Rusk and Polly, I guess.
Yeah.
To really not want to do what Gaunt wanted them to do. I would have liked that a little bit better. But I will say that if you want someone to want to like Stephen King, this is probably a good book to do it, because I think I mean, 100 years ago when I first read it, and I knew what it was about, like sort of, and I knew it was going to be scary, and it kept me up for 4 days straight. But I remember thinking like, oh my God, why are you describing every single little thing for 20 pages, you know? And like, I wouldn't be able to be like, yeah, here, read it. I think this book is so like fast paced that somebody who doesn't like to read or who wants to get into Stephen King, this is probably a good book for them to read.
My father is an avid reader, huge reader. And he's a gigantic Stephen King fan, and he considers this one of his favorite Stephen King books. It's like this, The Stand is here, then it's like It and Needful Things. Those are like his big three.
Wow.
So I always kind of approached this before I had read it as like a classic, just because I really valued my dad's opinion as a guy who's read as much Stephen King or almost as more as Athena has.
Yeah.
So, but he loves it. So you might have a point there.
Well, to me, like, because I know that Stephen King is also well known for his short stories, right? His compilations.
Yeah.
It almost feels like this could just be a collection of short stories where it's each person's object, each person's thing that they desire, right? And you could just have, you know, the one woman with her Elvis shades, and the one woman with, you know, the Elvis poster, and then you can have or that could be a combined story, right? And then you could have, you know, Buster, right? He could have his own story. So
Nettie and Wilma.
Yeah. Well, like, I love the way that they describe it as the circuit breakers, or everybody's connected to somebody else. Like, I even thought about that watching the movie today. Like, this would make a great 8 to 10 episode series,
right,
on one of the streaming networks, where each episode, exactly what you said, is like, this is the Nettie and Wilma, you know, circuit connector episode.
Yeah.
And then it builds up with the story of Gaunt as like the thing that holds everything together.
It makes me wonder, like, why do you think he wanted to make a final Castle Rock story? Like, what do you think the significance of that is about?
I mean, maybe he was closing a chapter on his, you know, on his life, you know, on his non-rehab life.
Yeah.
Trying to like end it and start over.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah. You know, when I was doing research too, Athena, I saw that like someone called this era the golden era of Stephen King books. Is there a time period that you think is like his best time period, or do you feel like the quality of his work has declined as he's gotten older, or how do you feel about King in general?
Well, I mean, his it's I don't even see it as that. I see like his smaller books versus his epic books. I do think it was like in a wave, like he dipped, but now it's coming back up. Like, I don't know if you guys read The Institute yet, but it's like one of my favorite books.
Oh yeah.
Now. And it's I don't know why. I mean, the protagonists are children, so maybe that's why, like, children being so it's a little reminiscent of it.
Yeah.
And it has a little bit of Shining, so it's really a great book, and that's one of his more recent books. Wendy's Button Box is great, and Dr. Sleep is more recent, and I think
it's great so far. Yeah, I love the way it's written.
Wonderful book. So yeah, I mean, I think he did take a dip a little bit, and everyone's probably gonna hate me, like with like The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon, and that was like, and hundreds of people are gonna.
No, I mean, he has a bunch of books. Like, he's written 70 books over the course of 40 years. So it's like, there's going to be ones that even the most ardent Stephen King fans forget or just fly under the radar. For me, having just read them, I mean, his first 3 books are Carrie, Salem's Lot, and The Shining. And then The Stand was like the thing that he had been working on from the beginning, and that like he eventually went back to when he got a little more, when he got a little famous. I think for The Shining, he was like, all right, I'll put out that monstrous book that I have.
Right.
And those four, like Carrie was very good, but Salem's Lot, The Shining, and The Stand are just miles ahead for me of anything he's ever written outside of the Dark Tower series, which just feels in and of itself separate. While it's everything connects to it, it
Right.
feels separate. So, like for me, early King is probably the best King in terms of storytelling and writing.
Yeah.
But then we come back to a book like Revival, which was just 2013, right? We reviewed it, or 2014.
2014. Doctor Sleep is 2013.
Yeah, and so like I'm in the middle of Doctor Sleep now. I absolutely love it, and I read Revival this summer. Absolutely loved it. So he's back on, and The Institute is a relatively new book. You love that. So yeah, I feel like the mid 80s maybe kind of waned a little bit after like
I remember not being so impressed with, Rose Madder and Dolores Claiborne.
Well, that was
they
also
were good
his
books.
Like, mid 90s.
Yeah, they were good
stuff.
books. They were, they were fine. Again, favorite child, but not being like, oh my God, I can't stop reading this.
Yeah.
That was the thing. Like, I think that's how I can tell. Like, Dr. Sleep, the only reason I stopped reading it, I started it in the evening, and the only reason why I stopped reading it is because I got scared. And so then I just woke up and read the rest of it.
Wow.
But like Needful Things, I kept putting down. And it was interesting. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll read this again. But it wasn't something like I was just like, get away from me. I have to finish reading it. And that's how I can tell like what I love and what I don't love. The Stand, when I just reread The Stand, I couldn't stop.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't stop it unless like someone yanked me away.
Well, we had this conversation earlier. Needful Things also, it doesn't feel like a scary book.
No, it wasn't scary.
No.
It's more of like it's kind of like a thriller with, there's like almost a police crime procedural aspect to it.
With a little with supernatural.
With obviously some supernatural stuff in there, but it doesn't scare you. The Shining is a scary book.
Yeah.
I'm listening to Dr. Sleep now, and I was doing the laundry in our laundry room of our co-op last night at like 11:30 at night alone with my headphones in, and like I'm like, all right, you know what? Maybe I'll just take the headphones out and listen when I get back upstairs.
Right.
Like, yeah, I again, I feel like to a listener, it might sound like we're hating on Needful Things. I think it's fine. It's a good book.
Yeah.
But for me, the story was great. The actual execution of that story, or the progression of that story, just wasn't all there for me.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Just so that we show that we're not hating on this book, we could talk about what we really like about it. And I could just go ahead and say that for me, all the stuff with Alan Pangborn I thought was great. I loved his relationship with Polly. And then I also really love the whole sequence where, this is kind of what I was talking about with King being a pantser, where it feels like he kind of goes off on this tangent, where essentially he talks about his whole story where his wife and his son died. And like, I'm listening on Audible as well. And, I'm just kind of like, okay, here's this scene. Okay, we're getting through this scene. But that's where I felt like the brakes got hit, and that's where it drove into a tree, for me. And I stopped and I like listened to the book, and I really felt it starting from that point on. So what did you guys think about that scene? And then what are some of your favorite scenes?
Well, I mean, I think Polly's backstory was really, a great part, which I was disappointed that it wasn't in the movie.
Yeah.
Like it just like skated over that completely. I also was interested in the objects. Like I felt like he could have done more, like made them more exciting. I don't know. I really like the, what each object meant to these people. I think it was refreshing that the bad guy actually didn't get, well, should I spoiler alert?
Yeah, let's do spoilers.
Okay. Spoilers. The bad guy did get away. And that is refreshing about, a Stephen King book. I mean, I know with it, like he does come back, but I think that was a good thing. Like it wasn't somebody that could be defeated because it is the devil.
Yeah.
So I like that. I do like, Alan and Polly's relationship. Yeah. I didn't mind Ace Merrill in the book. I just and him feeling like, oh, he used to be at the top of the food chain and now he's just like nothing.
I didn't
liked
mind
that.
him. I just felt he was extraneous. Like he basically was just another underling for Gaunt, and we already had Keaton and Hugh Priest, and there were characters like that. But I love when I just love Stephen King talking about characters. I do love Alan, and you know, we talked about this when I think when we did our revival review.
Yes.
The way that Alan's family dies is incredibly similar to the way Jamie's Reverend Jacob's wife and son dies.
Right.
It's just like a random kind of like an accident on the side of a main road, and you know, these things happen kind of thing. I did love the aspects where, and this is another thing that we've talked about on the Lacercast, where you have fan service to other things, but in a way that makes sense. This is the last Castle Rock story. It has characters from other Castle Rock stories. So Alan was distracted and like blames himself for his wife's death, which is totally not his fault.
Right.
But blames himself because he was obsessed with the murderer from the Dark Half as a cop. And I thought that was really cool, like the aspect of like he's weaving in the characters from his other books that take place in this world. It doesn't feel like it's Stephen King. It doesn't feel like fan service. It's just, this is the same town and these are the same characters. We've met Alan Pangborn before. So I did love things about that. And to me, Gaunt is just a great villain. There's something special about the devil as a villain and the devil in human form. And if you could pull off a great devil, it just makes the work feel so much better. And Max von Sydow plays him in the movie and is freaking perfect. Like dead on perfect for what you would think Leland Gaunt would look like and act like.
Right.
He's so good. And I just loved Gaunt in this story so much.
Yeah, you know, speaking of Gaunt, so for people that haven't read the book, he's the one that runs the shop, Needful Things, and he has an item for everyone that's like the thing that they need, because it's clearly what they need. Like it like once they have it, they have this ultimate satisfaction. And there's always these little allusions to what he is, because you know, you don't ever come out and say, "Oh, I'm the devil. I'm here to get souls," right? But like whenever he goes to touch someone, Stephen King always describes how awful his touch is, and the way that he talks to people, I absolutely love it, because he's all like sweet and charming and stuff when he's talking to people at first, but then he's just like really insulting. He calls them dummies, and you know, he's real mean to people.
There's that one scene early in the book where the woman who wants the Elvis picture, and he's like, "Get on your knees and give me a blowjob," and she's like, "Okay, fine," and he's like, "Get up, I don't want you to do that," and I'm just like, holy shit, that escalated quickly.
Yes.
Like,
he's very crude. It's kind of funny because he's like this gentleman at first, but then he's very crude and just, you know, condescending to everyone. And
he also has different eye color every time like
someone looks at him.
Yeah, so it's like whatever makes you feel best, that's what you see when you look at him.
So what are the differences between the movie? I know, Athena, you were saying that like they don't really go into Polly's story in the movie. Are there any other like significant changes?
Yeah, Alan meets Gaunt early on. He goes to stop.
Like right in.
Yeah. I mean, he doesn't obviously buy anything. He says he doesn't need anything. Like that's what he says. He doesn't need. So so that was part of it. Obviously Ace is not in the movie.
Ace isn't in the movie. They with Polly, Athena said they don't talk about her backstory, and they kind of ignore her arthritis for about the first hour of the movie, and then suddenly it becomes a major plot point towards the end. And like, it really kind of cuts down the characters. So it's like the major conflicts are Nettie and Wilma and you get one of the all-time great like fight sequences
Yeah.
between the two of them.
But it's not on the street where everyone can see. It's on Wilma's farm.
Yeah.
Okay.
They like fall out the window stabbing each other. I remember seeing it as a kid. Well, I think my dad took me to see this in the movie theater, and I remember thinking that was like the coolest scene I'd ever seen outside of like the Terminator.
Oh wow.
The Norris Ridgwick and Buster Danforth, Buster Keaton, that is very much explored in the movie. Obviously, yeah, and then like the rest of the characters are just kind of in the periphery. And
Yeah.
Alan, like Brian Rusk. My dad hated the fact that in the movie Brian Rusk buys a Mickey Mantle card instead of a Sandy Koufax card.
Yeah.
But like, the ending also. I don't know if you're ready to.
Spoiler City, man. Go to town.
The ending of the movie is completely different up until a point, and I think I liked the ending of the movie better. And because the ending of the book felt, and we could talk about this, it felt very out of nowhere to me.
Yeah.
To the point where I think I like rewound the Audible and listened to it again. I was like, huh? Okay. And then like I started laughing to myself about like, you know, the whole Stephen King can't write an ending story that, you know, comes up for the last 30 years.
Yeah.
So in the movie, Danforth Keaton actually is going to blow up. He has like a bomb vest strapped on, and he's going to blow up the whole town. And Gaunt is egging him on, going, "Come on, Buster. What are you, a loser? Just do it, Buster." And he's like, "Don't call me Buster." And he tackles Gaunt into Needful Things and blows up Needful Things.
Huh.
And then Gaunt, they think he's dead, obviously. And then all of a sudden he just walks out of the smoking ruins of the shop. And he's like, and he walks up to Alan and he's like, "I'll see your grandson in 2053. And he gets into his car and drives away.
Whoa.
And then the car, as they leave Castle Rock, the car just disappears.
Oh.
And it's like, they make no ifs, ands, or buts. Like, he is a supernatural being. He is the devil. You can't kill him, and he'll see you again soon.
Wow.
Yeah. I liked that aspect in the book. How, like, you know, what's the shop he opens at the very end?
Answered Prayers.
Answered Prayers. I like that part of it. The ending with Pangborn and him, though, I didn't like in the book.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this, because there's one thing I didn't see the movie. I was curious because in the book, one thing that kind of blew my mind was that the boy Brian Rusk, who's an 11-year-old boy, shoots himself in the head in front of his little brother. And I remember reading that or hearing that, and being like, "Whoa!" You know, did they show that in the movie?
He does put a gun to his head and threaten to kill himself. And then like Alan slow motion goes after him. And then in the next scene, he's like, "I just had an 11-year-old boy try to kill himself." And they say that like he pulled the trigger and he hurt himself, but he's not dead. There were a lot of parts like that in the book, though. Like we were talking earlier, there's the scene where the principal and all the little boy porno.
Yes.
Like that's not in the movie. You can't put that in there, especially not in 1993.
No.
You weren't putting that in a movie.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, all the Elvis orgy things are not in the movie.
Oh man. You could have had like Val Kilmer or something from like True Romance playing Elvis. Would have been great.
Yep.
I would love to have you both back on the show so that we could talk about the Stan book on here. And then the last show will cover the Stan miniseries. And
yeah, awesome.
If you want to join us for both of those, I'd be glad to have you with us.
Sure.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I think that's it for Needful Things for today. And we're going to just keep covering books too, because Danny's got me hooked into Stephen King books. So even though Stephen King month is over on the Lastercast channel, there's probably going to be Stephen King videos on both of these channels coming up. All right, well, thanks for
It's hard to ignore a guy with 70 books and about 100 movie adaptations of his work. So yeah,
we got a lot of material to cover.
Yep, exactly.
All right, well, thanks so much, guys.